Welcome to the deep dive. Looks like we're taking a deep dive into organizational behavior today.
Yeah, definitely a fascinating topic.
You've sent in some really interesting stuff. We have, looks like, a college textbook excerpt, Introduction of OB Unit 1.
Oh, wow.
So clearly you're
Right.
ready to go beyond, just the surface level.
Absolutely, yeah. Happy to help unpack all of this.
And you've even included like a bunch of different definitions of OB Prasad, Oswafapa,
Oh, wow.
Robbins, Davis, and Newstrom,
A
Luthans,
lot of different perspectives.
and then Newstrom and Davis again.
They must have really liked that definition.
Yeah. So it seems like everyone's got their own spin on what OB is all about.
Well, it is interesting, though, that even though the words are different, they all kind of get at the same idea. Like understanding how people act at work, the reasons they do the things they do, and then using that knowledge to improve things.
So it's not just observing like how people act in the workplace. It's about like the why behind those actions.
Yeah.
And then using that to make things better.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, is it about improving productivity? Is it about minimizing conflicts? Is it about, just making the workplace a better place to be?
Yeah.
It applies to so many things. And the beauty of it is that it's not just for managers,
Yeah. So really anybody who, I guess, works with other humans could benefit from understanding OB.
Yeah, pretty much, which is most of us.
All right. I like where this is going.
Yeah.
So you've also given us some materials that take us on this kind of historical journey of OB.
Yeah.
It goes all the way back to like 1776 with Adam Smith and his division of labor idea.
Oh, yeah. Smith, he was a visionary. I mean, his concept was revolutionary. He was basically saying, you break down complex tasks into smaller, more specialized jobs, you're going to see a massive increase in efficiency.
Oh, okay.
Think about, like, the assembly line, right?
Oh, what?
Each person becomes an expert in their little part of the process.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And that idea really laid the foundation for how we, structure work even today.
Okay. So instead of having one person do everything,
Yeah.
you have this team of like specialists, each one focusing on their area.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So fast forward like a century, and we've got scientific management, right?
Yeah.
Taylorism. Frederick Winslow Taylor and his search for the one best way to get things done.
Oh, yeah. Taylor, he was like obsessed with efficiency, right?
Yeah.
He used these things called time motion studies. He'd break down tasks into like tiny little components, analyze every movement, trying to cut out any wasted effort.
Wow.
Yeah, your source actually mentioned some factories. They saw productivity increases of like 400%.
Oh my gosh. That's wild.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
But I can also see how some people would like criticize that approach, right?
Yeah.
It kind of sounds a little bit dehumanizing.
Yeah, absolutely right. It kind of treats workers like, well, machines
Yeah.
instead of people with needs and feelings.
Yeah.
So yeah, big criticism of Taylorism. Even though it was undeniably good for productivity, it often neglected that human element, the workers' psychological needs, their motivations, all that stuff.
Okay. Thankfully, it didn't end there, right? We've got Frank and Lillian Gilbreth, pioneers in motion study, who brought, I guess, a more human-centered approach.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm kind of intrigued by their Thurbligs.
The Gilbreths, yeah. Another husband and wife team. They were, they brought together Frank's engineering side and Lillian's background in psychology.
God.
So they were still interested in efficiency, of course, but they really cared about the well-being of the workers.
But it wasn't just about squeezing every ounce of productivity out of people.
No. I mean, take Frank, for example, right? He famously optimized bricklaying, reducing the number of motions required from 18 to 4. Increased output, but also reduced fatigue for the workers.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, everybody wins.
That reminds me of those videos you see online of like chefs, chopping vegetables at lightning fast.
Yeah.
They got the movements down.
Exactly. And you can really see Lillian's influence in their work, too. Being a psychologist, she emphasized how important things like worker satisfaction, their motivation, the whole work environment was.
Okay. So now we're starting to, I guess, sound a bit more like, modern day OB,
Yeah, you're right.
taking both the efficiency and the human side of things into account.
Absolutely. They really paved the way for that next big shift in OB, the Hawthorne studies, and the rise of the human relations movement.
Oh, yeah,
That
Hawthorne
real.
studies. Legendary in the world of OB.
For sure. Those studies were done at Western Electric's Hawthorne plant, and they were originally, designed to just examine the impact of like physical conditions on worker productivity. Things
Right.
like lighting, temperature, break times, all that.
Sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah, you'd think so, but the results, they were surprising, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah. What they found was that, productivity would often improve regardless of the changes they made to the physical environment.
So whether they turned the lights up, down, changed the temperature, didn't really matter.
Yeah. Something else was going on there.
You should
They
just.
finally figured out that it was the social factors, the attention that the workers were getting, that was really making the difference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, simply paying attention to the workers, making them feel valued, led to better results.
That is a powerful insight.
Yeah, it really changed
It
things.
really shifted the focus of like OB
Yeah,
from just like mechanical efficiency to like more the psychological and social side of work.
absolutely. I mean, it sparked the whole human relations movement, which
Yeah.
really emphasized teamwork, motivation, leadership styles, communication, all that good stuff.
Wow. So that's really where we see OB starting to take shape into like the field that we know today.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. This historical journey's been fascinating. But let's get down to like the real world stuff. Like what are the advantages of actually understanding OB?
Yeah, you've got a whole list in your materials, but let's make it real. Like one of the biggest benefits is building better relationships in the workplace.
Makes sense. Because who wants to work in a place with like constant conflict and tension?
Exactly. And OB gives us the tools to understand, like, what's at the root of those issues,
Uh,
like how to recognize different communication styles, how people prefer to resolve conflicts, their ways of working, all of that.
Instead of just labeling somebody as difficult, you can like understand what's making them tick.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
a much better approach.
Yeah. So you've got all these strategies for better communication, for resolving conflict in a healthy way, and fostering a more collaborative and supportive environment.
I'm sold on the relationship building aspect.
Hmm.
What else can OB help us with?
Well, another big one is understanding motivation, right? Like what drives people at work, what makes them tick. That knowledge is key to creating a more engaged and productive workforce.
But isn't it all just about the money?
That's a pretty common misconception. I mean, yeah, money's important, but OB research shows that it's often not the primary motivator.
Really?
Yeah, things like recognition, autonomy, having a sense of purpose, opportunities for growth, even a positive work environment, those can be way more powerful.
Oh, okay. So it's about creating a workplace where people feel like valued, challenged, and inspired to do their best.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine, you're managing a team and one of your top performers, let's say her name is Sarah,
Okay.
she seems disengaged, her work quality slipped, she's not participating in meetings.
Classic case of a demotivated employee.
Yeah. So Obi would say, dig deeper.
Yeah.
Is she burned out? Does she feel like her work's not challenging enough? Does she need more recognition? By applying OB principles, you might find out that what Sarah really craves is more autonomy in her work.
Okay. So maybe she needs more ownership over her projects, the freedom to like make more decisions.
Exactly. By understanding her individual needs and what motivates her, you can create a more fulfilling experience for her,
Okay.
which will likely lead to better performance and engagement.
Yeah. That's a great example of how OB can actually be applied to
Yeah.
like a real life situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Your materials also mention psychological safety. What is that all about?
Psychological safety is all about creating an environment where people feel comfortable speaking up, sharing their ideas, taking risks, even making mistakes without feeling like they're going to be punished or humiliated.
Oh, okay. So building that culture of
Yeah.
trust and openness.
Exactly. OB helps us figure out how to foster that kind of environment where
Yeah.
people feel safe to be themselves and do their best work.
I can see how that would lead to more like innovation and creativity.
Yeah,
When people feel safe, they're more likely to like think outside the box.
absolutely. OB also talks a lot about understanding individual differences, which is huge in today's diverse workplaces.
Yeah, for sure.
Because everybody brings their own strengths and challenges to the table.
Right.
So OB helps us recognize and value those differences, whether it's personality, communication style, cultural background. It's about moving away from the one-size-fits-all approach and really tailoring your leadership and management style to each person.
Okay. This is starting to feel like a real toolkit for dealing with all the complexities of like human behavior in the workplace.
Yeah.
What are some of the like core concepts that we should know about OB?
Yeah. So your materials, they lay out a few fundamental principles. The first is like individual differences, and that goes beyond just personality,
Yeah.
It includes everything that makes us unique, our values, beliefs, perceptions, experiences, skills, abilities, all of that.
Okay. So recognizing that everyone's like wired differently,
Yeah.
and brings a unique perspective to the table.
Exactly. And then you have this concept of perception,
Yeah.
which is how we interpret the world around us.
Right.
Obi reminds us that our perceptions are subjective, you know? They're shaped by our experiences, our beliefs, even our moods.
So two people can look at the same situation and see completely different things.
Oh, absolutely. And that can lead to all kinds of misunderstandings and conflicts at work. Like, imagine, two colleagues, they disagree about how to approach a project. Their different perceptions might lead them to see each other as inflexible or unreasonable.
And that could easily turn into a huge argument
Oh, yeah,
if not handled well.
for sure. So, Obi helps us to remember that there often isn't one right way to see things.
Yeah.
It gives us the tools to communicate better, to listen to each other's viewpoints, and find common ground.
So recognizing that our perceptions are just that.
Hmm.
Perceptions, not objective reality.
Exactly. Then you have motivated behavior, which is really at the core of OB. Like, what drives people to act the way they do? What are their goals, their needs, their fears?
Yeah, and how can we, as leaders or even as colleagues, create a more motivating work environment?
Exactly. So OB explores different theories of motivation. Some focus on intrinsic motivators, like, the satisfaction of doing meaningful work, while others focus on extrinsic motivators, like rewards and recognition.
So understanding like what buttons to push to motivate different people, but also recognizing that like people are motivated by different things.
Exactly, yeah. And then there's the desire for involvement,
Yeah.
People want to feel valued, respected, heard. They want to participate in decisions that affect them.
Yeah. That seems especially relevant now, where it feels like people are looking for more meaning and purpose in their work.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't want to just be told what to do. They want to have a say in things.
Exactly. So OB encourages leaders to empower their teams, delegate responsibility, and create opportunities for employees to contribute their ideas.
So creating a more like participative and engaging work environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that.
And then the last core concept is this idea that organizations are social systems. So it's not just a bunch of individuals, right? They're these complex networks of relationships, norms, and values.
I like understanding the bigger picture, how everything kind of fits together
Yeah,
to
yeah.
shape behavior.
Yeah. The culture of the organization, the dynamics of the team, the leadership style of the manager, it all plays a role.
This is starting to sound like a mix of like psychology and sociology.
It is. I mean, OB draws on all sorts of disciplines: psychology, sociology, anthropology, political science, even economics.
Wow, a true interdisciplinary field.
Yeah,
Can we break down how each of those disciplines like contributes to OB?
absolutely. We can start with psychology, which really forms the foundation of OB. So psychology, it's all about understanding, like individual behavior.
Okay.
So it digs into things like learning, motivation, personality, perception, emotion. Basically, what makes us tick as individuals.
Okay. So it's like why people do the things they do, what drives their decisions, their actions, all that.
Exactly, yeah. And then you add in social psychology, which explores how people behave in groups, right? Looking at group dynamics, communication patterns, attitudes, persuasion, how our behavior is influenced by like being around other people.
Okay. So if psychology is the individual, social psychology is like how those individuals interact with each other, how they like influence each other.
Right, exactly. And then we bring in sociology, which kind of zooms out even further and looks at like the structure and function of like society as a whole.
Okay.
So sociology helps us understand how organizations fit into that larger social context,
Okay.
exploring things like social norms, power dynamics, the impact of like, societal trends on organizations.
Okay. So we're going from like the individual to groups to like society as a whole. It's
Yeah.
like we're building this like multi-layered understanding of how people behave.
Yeah, exactly. Then you toss in anthropology, which is the study of human cultures and societies, right? Anthropology is super important for understanding the role of culture in shaping behavior in organizations. It looks at things like, values, beliefs, rituals, symbols, and how different cultures approach things like work, communication, leadership.
Oh yeah, that's so important now, especially in today's like globalized world where workplaces are getting more and more diverse.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got political science, which might seem a little out of place, but is really quite relevant.
Okay, how so?
Well, every organization has its own political landscape, right?
Yeah.
So political science helps us understand those power dynamics, the decision-making processes, the negotiation tactics, the conflicts that pop up within organizations.
Okay, so like The unwritten rules of the game, the power structures, how decisions actually get made.
Exactly. And finally, we have economics, which is the study of how people make decisions about, limited resources. Economics helps us understand how organizations make decisions about things like, production, pricing, how they allocate resources, even things like compensation and benefits.
Okay, so understanding the economic forces
Hmm.
that shape how organizations behave and make decisions.
Precisely. And all of these disciplines come together to create this rich tapestry of knowledge that we call organizational behavior.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating and multifaceted field, really.
I'm starting to really get a feel for how, like, deep and broad OB is.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing. It's like this combination of insights from all these different
Oh,
fields,
sure.
and it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the best part is that all this knowledge can actually be applied in practical ways to make real changes in the workplace.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that OB can help us, build better relationships. Can you give me like a concrete example of how that might actually play out in like a real life situation?
Absolutely. Let's imagine you're leading a project team
Okay.
and you're tasked with developing a new marketing campaign. Right.
Okay.
And the team is diverse. You've got members from different departments, different backgrounds, different levels of experience, which, diversity is awesome. It can be a huge asset,
Yeah.
brings fresh perspectives, a wide range of skills.
Yeah, but diversity can also lead to like clashes and miscommunications if it's not managed well.
Exactly. That's where OB comes in.
Right.
So first, by recognizing individual differences, you understand that, each team member has their own unique communication style, work preferences, motivations. Some people might thrive in a really structured environment,
Right.
while others need more, autonomy and flexibility.
So instead of trying to force everyone into the same like mold, you'd adapt your leadership style to fit the needs of each person on the team.
Precisely, yeah. So you might, give really detailed instructions and have frequent check-ins for those who like structure, while offering more freedom and independence to those who, are more self-directed.
Makes sense, yeah. Understanding what makes each person tick and then adjusting your approach.
Exactly. Now let's bring in the concept of perception, right?
Mm.
OB reminds us that everyone perceives things through their own lens based on their experiences, values, beliefs.
Right.
So in this marketing campaign scenario, different team members might have completely different ideas about who the target audience is, what the key selling points are, even the overall strategy.
Oh, yeah. I can see how that would cause problems like
Yeah.
misunderstandings, disagreements, could even derail the whole project.
Oh, absolutely. So OB would encourage you as the team leader to create a space where everyone feels safe to share their perspective and challenge those assumptions, You need to be good at active listening, resolving conflict, and fostering that open communication.
So, like, instead of shutting down disagreements, you'd actually encourage them. That seems kind of counterintuitive.
It might seem that way, but by acknowledging and addressing these different perceptions early on, you prevent them from like festering and turning into huge conflicts later.
Right.
You're basically creating a space where you can have healthy debate, and you might even stumble upon some really innovative ideas that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
Okay, that's a great example of how OB can really help with teamwork.
Yeah.
What about motivation? How can OB help us motivate a team, especially a diverse one, where everyone has like different needs and what drives them?
Yeah, well, this is where understanding those individual motivators comes in, right?
Okay.
Some team members might be driven by, getting recognition and praise, while others crave those challenging tasks and opportunities for growth. Some people are motivated by a sense of purpose, contributing to a larger goal.
So you need to like figure out what motivates each person and then tailor your approach to fit that.
Exactly. You might publicly acknowledge the work of those who thrive on recognition, offer challenging assignments and professional development opportunities to those who are growth-oriented. And for the purpose-driven folks, you'd really emphasize the impact of their work, how it contributes to the overall mission.
That's a much more like thoughtful approach than just assuming that everyone's driven by the same things.
Yeah.
It's about personalization, right?
Yeah, for sure. And let's not forget about, that desire for involvement we talked about.
Right.
OB stresses how important it is to empower people, give them a voice in decision-making, especially important for, younger generations who really want that autonomy and want to feel like they're actually contributing.
So instead of just like telling people what to do, you'd involve them in brainstorming, get their input on decisions, even give them ownership over certain parts of the project.
Exactly. That not only boosts their motivation and engagement, but you're also tapping into their unique perspectives and expertise, which leads to better outcomes for everybody.
Yeah, okay. I'm seeing how all these OB concepts can really work together to create a more effective and positive work environment.
Yeah. And, we can't forget about conflict, which is inevitable in any team, especially a diverse one.
Yeah.
OB provides those frameworks for understanding different conflict styles,
Mm.
and it gives you strategies for resolving those conflicts constructively.
Yeah, because conflict, if it's not handled well, can be so destructive.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
can really derail a team and bring in a lot of negativity.
For sure. So OB helps us recognize that different people have different ways of approaching conflict, right? Some people are very assertive and direct, while others prefer a more collaborative or accommodating approach. Understanding these styles can help you navigate those tough conversations a lot more effectively.
Yeah, it's about creating a team culture where conflict is seen as an opportunity to grow and learn, not something to be afraid of.
Yeah,
But that takes skill and practice. Right.
it does, yeah. OB gives you the tools and techniques to address those conflicts directly but respectfully, focusing on the issue itself and not making it personal. It's all about active listening, empathy, and finding those win-win solutions.
This is sounding like a master class in teamwork and leadership.
Yeah, it really is. And remember, all this is happening within an organization,
Right.
which, as we said, is a social system with its own culture, norms, communication patterns.
It's like there's this whole unspoken language. You got to learn to navigate the workplace effectively.
Exactly. And OB helps you decode those unwritten rules. For example, some organizations have a very hierarchical culture. Decisions are made top down. Others are more egalitarian, where everyone's input is valued. Understanding that dynamic can really help you adjust your communication style and how you approach decisions.
It's fascinating to think about all the subtle things at play that influence how we behave at work.
It is, yeah. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about another area where OB really comes in handy: leadership development. So OB, it gives us this whole new way of looking at leadership. Like, it helps us move past those really basic ideas of what makes a leader, and it recognizes that there's no one right way to lead, you know?
Yeah, like that quote, leadership isn't a position or a title. It's about impact, influence, and inspiration. Something like that.
Exactly. So OB, it dives into these different leadership styles, right?
Mhm.
And how effective they are depending on the situation. And it looks at how leaders can adjust their style for, different people and different teams.
Makes sense. I mean, in a crisis, you'd probably want a more directive and authoritative leader.
Yeah.
Someone who can make quick decisions. But in a more stable setting, maybe a more collaborative and empowering leader would be better.
Yeah, absolutely. And OB really stresses the importance of emotional intelligence for leaders.
Right, right.
It's about understanding and managing your own emotions,
Mm-hmm.
but also understanding and responding to the emotions of others.
Yeah. It's almost like having a superpower, being able to read the room, sense how people are feeling, and adjust your approach. It's about building trust and creating a positive work environment.
Absolutely. OB gives us insights into how leaders motivate and inspire their teams, how they build a culture of respect,
Right.
how they create a shared vision.
So a good leader knows how to motivate their team, not just with money and bonuses and things like that,
Yeah.
but by tapping into those deeper needs, like
Yeah.
recognition, purpose, and growth.
Right, exactly. And OB even looks at the impact of personality on leadership, how different personality traits can either help or hinder someone's effectiveness as a leader.
Because, I mean, some people are just naturally more charismatic and outgoing, while others are more, thoughtful and introspective.
Yeah.
And they can both be great leaders, just in different ways.
Absolutely. So OB helps us understand the strengths and weaknesses of different traits. Like, leaders who are very extroverted,
Yeah.
they might be great at getting people excited and rallied around an idea, but maybe they need to work on their listening skills.
Right. Right.
And those who are highly conscientious,
Mm.
they might be super organized and dependable,
Yeah.
but maybe they need to learn to be a little more flexible, in a fast-paced environment.
Right.
OB gives us a framework for understanding these subtleties, and it helps leaders develop that self-awareness so they can improve.
That's like a roadmap for, becoming a better leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, all of this is happening within organizations that are constantly changing, right?
Right.
So how does OB help us deal with all that change?
Oh, change is where OB really shines. Organizations are facing so many disruptions these days: technology, globalization, constantly shifting customer needs.
Mm-hmm.
OB helps us understand how people react to change, and
Mm.
it gives us strategies to manage it effectively.
Because change can be scary,
Hmm.
right? People naturally resist it, even if it's ultimately a good thing.
Absolutely. That's just human nature. And OB helps us understand why people resist. Could be fear of the unknown, feeling like they're losing control, or just lack of trust in leadership.
Right.
So OB gives us strategies to overcome those barriers, like involving people in the change process,
Okay.
communicating clearly and honestly, providing support and training.
So it's about making people feel like they're part of the change, not just like having it done to them.
Exactly. It's about creating that sense of ownership. And OB also talks about creating a sense of urgency around change,
Hmm.
emphasizing why it's needed, what the potential benefits are.
Because if people don't get why it's happening, they're probably not going to be on board.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing. Creating a positive work environment. Seems like OB has a lot to say about that too.
It does. OB helps us understand the things that lead to stress, burnout, conflict,
Hmm.
but it also gives us the tools to build a culture of respect, trust, and psychological safety.
Yeah, because when people feel valued and supported, they're more likely to be engaged and productive
Right.
and just happier at work.
Absolutely. OB talks a lot about work-life balance, positive relationships, providing support and resources.
It's about creating a workplace where people can actually thrive, not just survive. This has been like a really awesome deep dive into the world of OB.
Yeah, it has, and we've covered so much ground.
It's amazing how much there is to learn about this field. So for our listener, what are like the key takeaways here?
I think the big thing is to remember that OB is all about recognizing the human side of organizations. Right? It's
Yeah.
about understanding what makes people tick, what motivates them, how they interact, how they respond to change,
Yeah.
and then using that knowledge to create workplaces where everybody feels valued and respected and empowered.
Yeah, it's about using those insights to build organizations that are more productive and innovative and
Yeah,
ultimately more fulfilling for everyone.
absolutely.
And here's a final thought for you to ponder. We've talked a lot about psychological safety today. What are some things you can do in your own workplace to foster that sense of safety? How can you encourage people to speak up, share their ideas, take risks without worrying about being judged? It's definitely something to think about.
Yeah. And remember, this is just the start. There's always more to learn and explore when it comes to OB.
So keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep working to create more human-centered workplaces. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.